March 13th, 1542, Tower of Britain. Just 19 years old, she walks slowly along the chilly stone corridor, headed for the scaffold. Trembling hands hold a little prayer book as guards accompany her. The fifth wife of Henry VIII, Catherine Howard, is about to meet the axe of the executioner. She had asked for the execution block to be sent to her cell the evening before, practicing her head position for hours, a startling move revealing her desperation. How could a young woman who had been Queen of England only 18 months earlier end like this? In that short time, what drove her from palace to scaffold? To understand Catherine Howard's collapse, we must go back to 1540. Henry VIII, now 49 years old, had just called off his marriage to his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves. Overweight, irritated by his failed marriages and suffering from a suppurating leg ulcer, the monarch seemed unlikely to wed again. Then he saw Catherine, a lady-in-waiting to his former wife and niece of the powerful Duke of Norfolk. Catherine Howard lacked royal blood or refined education. The Dowager Duchess of Norfolk sent Catherine, who had lost her mother as a tiny child, to live with her grandmother. Under such circumstances, supervision was essentially non-existent. The girl slept in a shared dormitory called the Maiden's Room in the Duchess's disorderly mansion, where other young noblewomen received only basic schooling. At just 13, Catherine had her first amorous encounter with Henry Mannix, her music teacher. They touched each other but never consummated the relationship. Later, Catherine would admit that Mannix had touched her in private, although she was too young at the time to understand the associated risks. By 15, Catherine had begun a more serious relationship with her grandmother's secretary, Frances Dereham. Witnesses said they often met in the hostel after curfew, dubbing each other husband and wife. These youthful secrets seemed buried when Catherine arrived at the royal court in 1539. Beautiful, lively, and energetic, she immediately caught the attention of the elderly king. Enchanted by her youth and gaiety, Henry called her his rose without a thorn and jewel of womanhood. Their marriage was celebrated on July 28, 1540, just 19 days after Henry dissolved his marriage to Anne of Cleves. Love seemed to revive the king, who showered Catherine with jewels, gowns, and houses. Nothing was too lavish for his young queen. At first, Catherine seemed content. She planned celebrations, danced for the king, and managed her royal household with youthful vitality. Yet beneath this cheerful surface lay a deadly secret. Despite his vigor, Henry was an old and ailing man, transported in a special chair because of his ulcerated leg, which gave off a foul odor. For Catherine, personal life with the king was awkward. The contrast between her aged, unattractive husband and the gallant young men at court was stark. One such man was Thomas Culpeper, a charming courtier and gentleman of the king's privy chamber. Their relationship began with stolen glances, then exchanged notes, and finally, secret meetings. Jane Roper, Catherine's sister-in-law and lady-in-waiting for the executed Anne Boleyn, encouraged these risky liaisons. The same woman who testified against Anne Boleyn now put another queen in mortal danger. At the same time, rumors about Catherine's past began to spread. Frances Dereham, her former boyfriend, appeared at court requesting a position in her household. Terrified that her history might be revealed, Catherine made a fatal mistake. Trying to silence Dereham, she appointed him as her secretary, only escalating the risk. During a summer 1541 tour of northern England, Catherine's meetings with Culpeper grew more frequent. To allow the queen and her lover to spend hours together while the king slept, Jane Roper arranged vacant rooms wherever the court stayed. November 1541 marked Catherine's fall. Protestant reformer John Leland, connected to the Duchess of Norfolk's household, informed Archbishop Cranmer, the king's close advisor, about Catherine's past. Leland left a letter outlining the charges on the royal bench in the chapel. Cranmer, reluctant to burden the volatile king, initially hesitated to deliver the news. Henry was incredulous upon receiving the letter. Although he authorized a secret inquiry because he believed the charges were unfounded, evidence soon began to mount. Former staff of the Duchess confirmed Catherine's contacts with Mannix and Dereham. Worse, the inquiry revealed her ongoing relationship with Culpeper. A letter Catherine had sent to Culpeper was discovered, ending with the deadly words, "My heart and body are at your disposal, and I wish I were in your arms, for it would be a relief to my heart." This official documentation of her adultery sealed her death. Henry was heartbroken when he uncovered the treachery committed by the woman he had believed pure and innocent. Before his council, witnesses said he openly wept and demanded a sword to kill the queen with his own hands. Then, driven by a fit of rage, he left Hampton Court in the dead of night, never to see Catherine again. Confined to her chambers, Catherine struggled at first to understand the cause of her downfall. She passionately called his name as she tried to sprint through the palace corridors, begging the king for pardon after learning of the charges. Guards stopped her and led her back to her prison, her quarters. Catherine lost her queenly title on November 7, 1541, and was moved to Scotney Abbey. Under questioning there, she admitted her premarital affair with Derham, but angrily denied any sexual relationship with Culpeper. Her denials were not enough. Derham and Culpeper were arrested and tortured. Under torment, Culpeper confessed he desired carnal knowledge of the queen, though he never clearly admitted they consummated their relationship. In December, both men were executed. Being noble, Culpeper was beheaded. Derham, still conscious, endured the full penalty for treason, hanged, disemboweled, and quartered. In January 1542, Parliament passed an act of attainder against Catherine, condemning her for treason without a formal trial. The law declared that a queen could commit treason simply by intending adultery, and that failing to disclose her sexual past before marriage was itself treachery. Barely 17, Catherine remained imprisoned in the Tower of London, awaiting the king's judgment. Still wounded by betrayal, Henry signed her death warrant. Desperate to die with dignity, Catherine reportedly practiced placing her head on the block several times in the days before her execution. February 13, 1542. They erected the scaffold on the same ground where her cousin Anne Boleyn had died 6 years earlier. Unlike Anne, who faced death with grace, Catherine was nearly insane with anxiety. Witnesses reported that the weight of her fear caused her legs to buckle, forcing them to drag her to the scaffold. Her last words were clear and chilling. "I die a queen, but I would rather die the wife of Culpeper." She then urged the executioner to hurry. A single stroke severed her head from her body. Beheaded before she turned 20, Henry's rose without a thorn was lost forever. Catherine's body was buried without ceremony in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula within the Tower of London, near the tomb of her cousin Anne Boleyn. Henry forbade any official mourning, and all images and emblems of Catherine vanished from the royal palaces. What remains of her legacy? Often dismissed as a foolish, disobedient wife who deserved her fate, Catherine Howard's story reveals a far more complex tragedy. A teenager with no proper guidance, married to a man 33 years her senior, sick and volatile, surrounded by courtiers who saw her only as a tool for their ambitions. Her case reshaped English law. For over a century, the law defined treason for a queen as including failure to disclose past relationships. Henry never fully recovered from this betrayal. He married a 6th time, to Catherine Parr, but in his final years, he grew even more despondent and despotic. Catherine Parr's grave remained unmarked for generations until Queen Victoria ordered memorial plaques inside the tower to honor the burial sites of royal casualties. A simple plaque marks the likely spot of Catherine Howard's small body today.